to our autumn mini series, and we are going to speak today about progesterone, and specifically about progesterone in perimenopause, safe, effective treatment protocols. So I want to thank Vibrant Wellness for helping us put this together, and thank you all for attending. And for those of you that are brand new to the Kalish Institute, I will do a brief introduction, and then we will get into the details of what we're going to talk about. So I am Dan Kalish. I've been practicing functional medicine for 33 years. I've been teaching functional medicine for like 25 or 30 years, a long time. And I'm pretty focused right now and have the Kalish Institute very focused right now on building successful functional medicine practices. And the idea is that there's lots of medical schools out there that you can learn the functional medicine part, but that we're really a residency program. We are trying to give you a residency experience, how to actually do this work, practical application, what labs to order, what supplements to use, how to dose everything, all the nitty-gritty business things, what to charge people, how to deal with patient process flow, and all these different things that go into building a practice. So that's really the goal of the Kalish Institute, is to have you have a super successful practice. I've done a lot of research. I've worked with some of the top lab people in the industry for a long time, and one of the first connections I made was what we're going to be sort of referencing today, which is I was still in school, and I went to a menopause seminar in Oakland, California. There was like 1,000 people in this room, and this man got on the stage, Dr. John Lee, and he was the keynote speaker. And I was listening, and I thought, this guy is pretty smart. And so at the end of that talk, I just charged up on stage, introduced myself, and Dr. Lee, I was so young, I was like 29 years old. Dr. Lee, for some reason, I still don't understand to this day, was like, okay, kid, you know, I'll take you on. And he trained me for like 4 years. He was, and this is like 1992, around there. He was the expert at that time and the main promoter of the use of progesterone. And so it was a great honor to even know the fellow, and to have him consult with me on every new patient was just a gift. That was just incredible. So anyways, I learned a lot about progesterone from Dr. Lee. He wrote a whole series of books that were really popular in the 90s. And then I met Dr. Timmons a few years later and learned about the lab testing component. Okay, so this is a treatment that I've used since I was in school, before I even had a license. And it's a treatment that is so effective, it just should be something that everybody knows how to do competently. Are you going to learn how to do that in the next like 25 minutes? Probably not, but at least this will introduce you to the idea. You get inspired, and then hopefully you'll take some of our other classes. What other classes? Well, you could take our upcoming boot camp on interpreting female hormones with the Hormone Zoomer from Vibrant Wellness. Okay, and that is starting soon, October 6th. You scan that QR code, you can sign up for this class. You get, if you sign up for the class, you have to pay, I don't know, whatever the fee is for the class, and then it's like, whatever it is, $1,200 or something, but you end up getting a discount if you listen to this talk right now. You get $360 off the regular course fee, and if you sign up using this QR code, you'll also get a free Hormone Zoomer test kit from Vibrant. So Vibrant's kicking in a free test kit. We're giving you guys a discount off the price of the class. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. If you're interested in doing this, you should just sign up, okay? We tried to make this kind of obvious. So use that QR code, use the, what do you call it, like the coupon code there. You'll get our discount off the normal price of the course, and then you will get your free Hormone Zoomer test kit. You have to be a practitioner to do this, obviously, to get a test kit. If you're a regular patient or something, you can't do this. This class is for practitioners only. So now I'm going to talk about the Hormone Zoomer. We're going to go through slides for 15 or 20 minutes. Then I want to just get right into program design so you guys can see how you can design these programs. Let's see. Here's some questions already. And yeah, type in questions, any questions that you have. Natalia asked a question already. Our functional medicine classes, yeah, we accept nurse practitioners and medical doctors, chiropractors and acupuncturists, nutritionists, some health coaches if you have the right certification, and you could be in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Japan, Mexico. We have a doctor from Pakistan now. We have a nurse practitioner that just signed up from the UK. So basically anywhere in the world, nurse practitioner, medical doctor, osteopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, some health coaches, depending on your certification. It's a pretty broad range of people signing up for these classes, okay? Physiotherapists, yes, Suzanne, we have done a bunch of physiotherapists also. You have to be able to order labs, that's the only thing. And well, we've got a lot of questions about the class. We do not offer continuing education credits. Why? Because it's like my classes are like the most non-CME thing on the planet. Because when you get into the real boot camp, this boot camp that everybody's asking questions about, then we're talking about you're going to use this product in this dose, from this company. And so it violates all the CME rules and that's why many of the functional medicine programs, you can't tell you that stuff because under CME, you can't name a brand and tell you it's seen as a promotional thing. And so, yeah. But the thing is, I found it when people sign up for these courses, the first thing they go to, and we can track your behavior, by the way, we know everything. We know what you're doing right now, in fact. I'm kidding. No, but the first thing people tell me they go through to look at is the supplement stuff. Like, what supplements are we talking about? What are the dosages? That's what people are hungry for, is actually how to do this stuff, okay? And that's what we teach. So it's all non-CME because it's all practical application, and we talk about brands all day long, and you have to know which company and which dose, or you can't really get started. So that's really our role in this whole game, okay? But yes, we do have some physiotherapists that have taken this class. That's an interesting one. All right, so now, okay, keep typing in questions. We'll get to questions at the end. But let's check out our regularly scheduled program here. So number one, to the extent that a woman is going through perimenopause, let's say you have patients that are ages 45 to 55 age range, as her female hormone levels are dropping as a normal part of going through menopause, if she has pushed her stress hormone system hard for the earlier part of her life, she's going to notice more and more symptoms, more and more symptoms. So the more stressed the human body has been prior to perimenopause, the more menopausal symptoms are going to occur. How do we know that? Because when we test tens of thousands of women with these labs, you see that the state of their adrenal hormones is going to parallel the extent to which they have female hormone symptoms around perimenopause. I had a patient, her name is Sharon. She's a lovely person. She was a patient of mine when I was 30 and she was 30, and then she stayed a patient. And then all of a sudden you fast forward, I was 50 and she was 50, and Sharon comes in and she's like, hey, Dan, you helped me so much getting pregnant, and I helped her with all these fertility programs. She has 2 lovely children. What a great story. And she's like, I'm going through menopause now. And I'm like, okay, what's going on, Sharon? She's like, I'm really worried. And I'm like, what are you worried about? She's like, I go out with my female friends and they're all complaining about hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings, and their sex drive's not so good. And I'm like, okay, so which of those is going on for you? I'm not making the story up. I actually had this conversation. Okay. She's like, nothing, none of those problems are happening. I'm like, you're not having any hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, and your sex drive is great, and your skin looks great. Yeah. She's like, yes. What's wrong? I was like, there's nothing wrong. Remember, like 20 years ago when we balanced your hormones? If you balance the adrenal hormones and the progesterone levels in a woman who's in her 20s or 30s, when she does go through perimenopause and menopause, what actually happens is her periods just stop one day, and there's like no side effects, no problems, no symptoms of that whole process. So again, you can reverse engineer that. The more stress that you're under, and the less that you have corrected your adrenal hormones and dealt with balancing progesterone in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, the more that perimenopause is going to be an absolute nightmare. And what a great consult that was, to be able to tell Sharon, this is what's supposed to happen, and then her just walking out the door going, wow, this is great. I'm glad that I did this, years and years ago. So you got to test and correct the adrenal hormones as part of this overall program, and know how to balance DHEA and cortisol. That's not really what we're getting into today, but I just have to point out, this is the foundation upon which the progesterone treatments have to rest. If you just use progesterone alone, you're going to have a smaller percentage of success. If you do the adrenal programs combined with progesterone, You're going to be in great shape. And in fact, in the Hormone Zoomer bootcamp from the Chaos Institute and Vibrant Wellness, I put in a whole bunch of adrenal protocols into this class that you're all about to sign up for. Because I thought, I don't know, it's not an adrenal class, is it? No, it's not, Dan. But then I had this internal dialogue with myself yesterday. I was like, but they need these adrenal programs. So I put all the adrenal protocols in this class, even though it's not an adrenal class and not supposed to be there. That's like a bonus thing. So you guys can get started. So now, all we're worried about, assuming that you've got the thyroid and the adrenals and all that stuff under control, is what's happening with progesterone. So if progesterone levels are low on this test, then you know that she's got a progesterone problem and you're going to want to fix that. When you see women that have estrogen-related imbalances, much of that can actually be corrected by treating the adrenals and dealing with the progesterone. Much of that, I don't know, more than half, maybe 50, 60, 70% of women that are having perimenopausal symptoms will eliminate all of their symptoms if you deal with the adrenals and progesterone alone. You can always use estrogen. There's nothing wrong with using estrogen if you need to, but a lot of times you don't need to, okay? And yes, we're going to send out a recording of this. If you signed up for this webinar, you're going to get a copy of the recording. Like, give us a day or so, but we'll send out the copy of the recording. So here's the basic pathway of hormones. And once you understand this pathway, a lot of this makes a lot more sense. So we take vitamin B5, kind of mix that around with acetyl-CoA and some cholesterol, and we start making the steroid hormones. So in order for this whole thing to work, you have to have enough B vitamins, especially B5. If you don't have enough B5, then pretty much none of this is going to work. And it turns out B6 is pretty important too. So if you're ever kind of struggling with a progesterone case, just give them some B complex that has a lot of B5 in it, and watch what happens there. So you got to have the B vitamins. The B vitamins aren't there, then none of this is going to get kickstarted. So then you make pregnenolone, and from there you make progesterone. You can also take pregnenolone and make testosterone and the different forms of estrogen. And here's your DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone. And when we're stressed out of our minds, as many of us are, we make a lot of cortisol, and that will raise up the cortisol. And the longer that you're high in cortisol, the more you run the risk of progesterone levels dropping. That's why stress over a long period of time causes progesterone problems. And that's why just giving progesterone alone usually isn't enough. You need to also balance out the cortisol. Pretty straightforward. Once you see the pathways, it makes sense. And then where does DHEA fit in all to this whole picture? Here's DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone. So DHEA is the precursor to testosterone and the various forms of estrogen, estradiol, estriol, estrone. So DHEA also goes up when we're stressed, and then over long periods of time can become depleted. So a lot of people have problems with DHEA or problems with cortisol, and you can see based on the pathways, if you start to regulate the DHEA and cortisol, you can correct a lot of things that are related to progesterone and estrogen imbalances. So that's why the adrenals are important. And none of this happens in a vacuum. The HPA and HPT, so hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and the HPT hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis are all kind of tied in. So here's actually how it all works. So you're stressed. That could be anything. That could be you're in a war zone in Iraq driving around in a Humvee. It could be that your mother-in-law is coming over. It could be, I don't know if you've seen, I think in my mind, maybe the best TV show I've seen in the last decade. If you haven't seen The Bear yet, it's on Hulu. The Bear, it's probably the best TV show I've seen in the last decade. But talk about stress. Okay, I'm not going to give away any of the storylines here, but man, it is just like one stress escapade, that whole TV show. So it could be anything. Think about The Bear. It could be work-related stress. It could be family-related stress. It could be that you have an alcoholic mother or a mentally ill mother. It could be that you just had a baby. It could be that you're going through a divorce. It could be that you have a microbiome imbalance. It could be that you have an environmental toxin exposure problem. It could be that you're overweight. There's lots of different ways that we can get stressed. Whatever it is, we start to get the stress going, the HPA axis gets disrupted, and that ultimately is what throws off the female hormones, okay? That's ultimately what throws off the female hormones. So now, we're going to test and correct the adrenals as a separate project, yeah, and of course, thyroid as well. Here's another diagram of the pathways. So what we're going to focus in on today, we want to see there's a context to this. There's all these different hormones, all these different pathways. Remember, here's our vitamin B5, there's our cholesterol, there's pregnenolone. That's a big part of adrenal program correction is using pregnenolone. But we're focusing in on progesterone here. But I just want to emphasize it's related to all these other hormones as well. And yes, believe it or not, progesterone can also convert into estrogen. That's interesting. You wouldn't think that, yeah, there's a pathway for that right there. That arrow is accurate. So I'll say that again. Progesterone can actually convert into estrogen. Isn't that wild? Who knew that? I've seen that in practice before. We had a patient who was very toxic in progesterone because she had overused progesterone creams and she was trying to avoid estrogen dominance, and her estrogen levels were like sky high. And I was looking at the lab, I was like, wow, how's that possible? And I thought, oh, you know what? There is yeah, if you get enough progesterone in your body, you can actually make estrogen out of it. It's crazy. So too much progesterone, not a good thing. You want the right amount of progesterone. And then again, the big picture, we think of the stress hormones and female hormones as a component, as a body system, the hormonal system. But we also need to address GI and toxin-related things. So to balance out hormones in general, you need to have a good gut microbiome, good healthy functioning gut, and you have to be able to clear environmental toxins and clear hormones adequately also. So again, it's not all in isolation here. We want to correct the hormones, the GI, and the detox pathways all at the same time, okay? But now we're going to focus really on perimenopause and the problems that are associated with it. Anything from hot flashes to night sweats, insomnia, migraine headaches, PMS, low sex drive, depression, anxiety, all these types of problems. Much of this can be relieved if you test for and then correct the adrenals and add in a dash of progesterone. Of all the things that you can do in your practices that are just going to have like a gazillion different benefits, I would put progesterone in like the top 5 or 10 treatment options that will just fix so many dozens of problems. It's mind-numbing. Like you could, and you will see, and I've seen this hundreds of times, just giving progesterone to somebody, correct hot flashes, headaches, PMS, low sex drive, depression, insomnia, night sweats, like all in the same person, all in a matter of a couple of weeks, okay? I mean, it's pretty incredible. You can get too much progesterone, so you have to be careful about it. It's not a more is better situation. That's why we do lab testing, because you test and it's low, and you give the progesterone, and then 3 to 6 months later, you run a test again, and you see what the heck is happening. And if the levels are getting too high, then you stop. It's that simple. I had the whole first decade of my practice was based on this work I did with Dr. John Lee that I told you about when I was in school. The whole first decade of my practice, I gave out progesterone like constantly to everybody. It was really the thing that built my whole career in that first decade. It's the easiest treatment to do once you understand how to do it. It's not particularly complicated. It's a single product. You just got to figure out how you're going to dose it and how frequent you're going to give it. You know, and so there's different dosing schedules that you should know about, and then there's different ways you can give it. There's 2 major ways you can give. Well, there's 3 maybe. So you can give it 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off if the woman's still cycling. You can give it every day, but that has some risks with it. And then you can give it every day of the month except for like 3 days off or 7 days off, somewhere in that range. So there's different philosophies on how people use it, but it's a very straightforward product to learn how to use. So when I was working at my first lab company, BioHealth Diagnostics, back in the 90s, we had thousands and thousands of hormone tests on women who were in perimenopause. In those days at that lab, we ran these month-long panels. And so you could see a woman who is in perimenopause or menopause, what her fluctuating levels of hormones were. And it turns out that from the time that a woman's period stops, let's say she's 52 years old, there will still be internal cycling of progesterone and estrogen for anywhere from 1 up to 5 years later. How do we know this? Because I was working at the lab. We just saw this on the labs because we were doing month-long hormone panels on women who had no longer hadn't had a period for a year or more. So in your mind, or the way that we were taught this, is like, oh, you're in menopause, you haven't had a period for a year, so now all these hormone levels are low all the time. But in reality, it's a cycle that gradually fades out over a 1 to 5 year window. Why does that even matter a little bit? It matters a lot because let's say that she hasn't had a period for a year or two. It's very possible that her progesterone and estrogen levels are fluctuating each day of the month. And so the exact right amount of progesterone you give on one day may be too much on another day and maybe not enough on a different day. You see what I mean? So it's hard to regulate your dosing when she's still internally cycling, but there's no period anymore. So there's still an internal shift in production, but there's no longer a period. That's the most challenging phase to deal with, because if she's in full-blown menopause, let's say 5 years no menstrual cycle, then the hormone levels are flat at that point. You know for sure they're flat. That's much easier. Once you get the right dose, that's the right dose. You don't have to like hunt around for what's happening. But at least in my experience, many women come into your clinic in this stage, ages 45 to 55. Their periods are just starting to slow down or stop. And so you got to deal with this whole fluctuating thing. Okay? And when we do the protocols, we can talk about exactly how to do that. Oh, and then what type of progesterone? Stephanie asked. So you can use it in a pill. You can get creams, but creams are problematic and challenging. I wouldn't recommend creams for most cases. Creams can build up underneath the skin. You can transfer creams from one person to another through skin-to-skin contact. Creams are kind of hard to dose a little bit. I think the drops, the liquid drops that we put in the mouth, have all the advantages of the creams. They bypass your liver for that first pass. They're easy to dose because each drop is X number of milligrams. So you can get really specific on the dosing. You have larger or smaller dosages. It gets right into your bloodstream directly through the tissues in the mouth. So it has all the advantages that the creams have in terms of a delivery system, but none of the disadvantages. So well, that's not true. There's one huge disadvantage with the oral, with the liquids that you put in the mouth, and that is that you've got progesterone in your mouth, right? So if you're going to retest with a saliva test, you're going to get some pretty wild numbers, right? Because you're putting progesterone in your mouth every day and you spit into a tube to collect your sample. It's going to throw the sample off. So the retesting is a little more difficult. You have to plan that out better. But outside of that, everything that about the liquid drops is easier to use. And I'll show you some brands at the second part of this talk, okay? Once we get through these slides. So hormonal fluctuations, we talked about this. And I guess for a woman ages 45 to 55, one of the most important decisions you have to make with her, in conjunction with her, is are you going to treat her as if she's cycling so that you reset her cycle with the progesterone so she goes back to a regular menstrual cycle but is symptom-free? Or are you going to treat as if she's in full menopause, where you're not trying to reset the cycle, you're just trying to relieve the symptoms and give a fixed daily dose? So you can do it in a couple different ways. And I think that's one of the more important decisions to make in the beginning is, do we want to reset your cycle and get it working properly again, symptom-free cycling, or are we going to treat you as if you're in menopause and we're going to give it to you every day so your cycle shuts down? We follow this natural shutdown of your cycle. I just suggest asking women what they want to do. And most women are like, have a pretty strong opinion on it, okay? So, because you can do this either way. It's very common for advanced practitioners to use progesterone only during menopause at first. I've seen this in 3 different, what I would call advanced hormone replacement therapy doctors in the last 2 years that I've run across. And they all say the same thing, like, why do you do that? And it's just, obviously I do this too, but well, they say a lot of times it's enough, basically, and we don't need to use estrogen for a lot of these women, and less is better, right? Less is better. Now, there are some advantages to using estrogen. Sometimes programs are faster and easier to lock in, and there are some health benefits of taking estrogen. And so there's been this historical fluctuation on people's opinions about estrogen. Right now, most people in the integrative medicine world are coming back to seeing estrogen as a friendly and good thing to use. But for like 20, 30 years there, estrogen was kind of on the no list. It was sort of canceled as a hormone. So you have to be a little careful about how you use it. But if you're on top of the research, you can use estrogen very effectively. But if you don't need it, you don't need it. And if you can relieve all the symptoms and balance out all the hormone levels without the estrogen, then more power to you. And many times we can balance out or improve estrogen production if we use the adrenal programs I was talking about earlier. Okay. Now, separate from that, so what we're talking about for today is just the stuff that you can do to relieve perimenopausal symptoms. That's it. Separate from this, and we don't have time to get into this because it's probably a 2-hour discussion. Separate from this is the question of the woman has no symptoms at all now that are hormone related. She feels great. Should she take estrogen and progesterone for the rest of her life or not? Does it protect your bones and against colon cancer and against heart disease and against Alzheimer's? Are those protective features of progesterone and estrogen strong enough to outweigh any potential risks? That's a whole different discussion, and we're not really talking about that today. Maybe we can, in the Q&As, we can get into that. What we're talking about right now is just how do you relieve perimenopausal symptoms? Separately, you need to sit down with this person once all their symptoms are gone and say, okay, now that all your symptoms are gone, let's talk about whether you should take progesterone and estrogen every day for the rest of your life or not. Okay, that's a separate discussion, separate lecture someday. I just wanted to point out that adrenal programs are really important. We talked about that, but you know what's equally important are dopamine and neurotransmitter related protocols. So especially in cases with progesterone that's combined with depression and mood issues and cognitive issues, you can get double or triple the effect in terms of improvement of the progesterone by simply balancing out their dopamine. Okay, it's a different test. Yeah, I get it. So you got to do an organic acids test to look at the dopamine metabolites. But once you see those, if they're off, you can use dopamine support. That's tyrosine, basically. And sometimes this combination of tyrosine with the progesterone, it's just the absolute magic bullet that you need. So if you're struggling and the progesterone is not working quickly enough or well enough in the first couple months, think about neurotransmitter testing through organic acids and dopamine support with tyrosine. And then hopefully you've already done an adrenal test. If you haven't, then you got to go backwards, do the adrenal protocol with the progesterone, and that'll bring things together. Okay, so either adrenal program with the progesterone or dopamine support program with the progesterone. Those are for your more challenging cases. And then these are just the questions that people always ask, so I'll just bring them up now. Key considerations. How long should people wait around until they're starting to feel better? I mean, I would say if you have a properly designed progesterone program, within the first month of them using the program, there should be some, 20, 30% improvement at least, okay? How long do you do the programs once they're completely better? Well, it depends on how old they are and what your overall goals are, but let's say for symptomatic relief, 6 to 12 months, and then you have to stop and then sit down and say, okay, now that you're all better, what are we gonna do long-term for progesterone and estrogen use throughout the whole rest of your lifespan? Not because you're having symptoms, but just because maybe it's good for you to take these hormones to protect your bones and your heart and your brain and all these things. How often do you need to follow up? For sure, you need to follow up with people once a month when they're doing one of these programs. Maybe in the beginning, every 2 or 3 weeks, because in the beginning, a couple of months, you may need to adjust dosages up or down. Once you get the dosages dialed in properly, you should be in good shape. If they have a lot of side effects, it's usually a liver detoxification or liver clearance problem, and you have to stop and work on their liver a little bit. How do you change the program if you're not achieving the treatment goals? Well, I recommend a mid-level starting dosage. And when we look at these liquids, you'll see it's usually around, maybe 8 or more typically 12 drops of these liquids twice a day. And so you can go up to 20 drops twice a day. I mean, you could drop it down to 1 drop a day. So I like to start in the mid-range, and then if you're not getting a response after that first month, increase the dose. Now, if you start with 12 drops twice a day and it's just too strong, of course you can cut the dose in half. It's hard to anticipate exactly how this is going to go until you actually try it. And then the most common reasons a program would not work: you didn't deal with the adrenals or the gut, you didn't deal with the brain, you didn't deal with their whole stress thing, right? Or, and this is a sneaky one, their liver is really toxic and they can't clear hormones very well. Now, if you're doing a complete workup, like adrenal and female hormone testing and a gut test, along with organic acids, you're going to be able to spot all these things before they trip you up. That's a reason to do all 3 tests. All 3 tests would be a hormone zoomer, a gut zoomer, and organic acids. Then you'll see the people that have a gut problem, and you'll see the people that have a liver clearance detox problem and a dopamine problem. You'll see all that in the beginning, and you won't have to figure that out because they're non-responsive. So there's an advantage to doing all 3 tests, but I understand it's like a lot for people. And just as a quick shout out here, there's a lot more to this, right? Diet, lifestyle, adrenals, nutrient blends, herbs, bioidentical hormones. We're just talking about one treatment because it's such a simple thing to learn. And if you're just doing this one thing, you know, you can get a lot of traction on it. And please do keep typing in questions. I see some of you have questions there. Totally going to cover those. And for those of you that joined us late, I just want to mention, we have a female hormone zoomer boot camp coming up starting October 6th. If you sign up using that QR code and that coupon code Vibrant25, you get savings of $360 from us at the Kalis Institute. We just discounted off your bill right when you click that button. And you get later on in the next couple days or week or so, a free hormone zoomer test kit that's worth $500 from Vibrant. So Kalis Institute, we're giving you $360 off on the cost of the class, and Vibrant's kicking you guys a free lab. We're trying to make this an obvious and easy decision. It's not going to cost you that much money to sign up for this class. You're going to get a test kit for free, and we're giving you a discount also. And we just want a bunch of people to take this class so you guys can learn how to do this and figure this out. That is our goal. Going for volume now. All right. I have plenty of other classes that are way more advanced that, you know, a small percentage of people can take. We're trying to make these boot camps just kind of obvious that you should sign up for. So now we'll talk for a minute or two more, and then we're going to look at labs. And let me see. There's a bunch of other questions that have come in. Yeah, so to answer, it looks like Air Potter's question. Yeah, so we do have a specific liver detoxification and toxins class. It's in our longevity series. It's actually going on right now. I don't know if it's a little late to sign up for it. You could probably still sign up for it. It may be late to do that, but we do that once a year. And then the other way that we cover off on liver detoxification is with our various organic acids classes. There's a couple ways. You could either do the longevity detox course or any of our organic acids classes. We'll talk about liver. All right, so let's take a look here. So bioidentical hormones. So when we say progesterone, what do we mean? It's progesterone. It's made from wild yam plants, Dioscorea, this wild yam, but it's actually molecularly changed in the lab somewhere, and it's real progesterone, the same exact progesterone that a woman produces in her body. You can get these without a prescription if it's in a liquid or cream form. The same exact hormone in a capsule is prescription only. The liquids, prescription or no, I mean, even though the liquids are non-prescription, so they're easier to deal with, but they're actually more, for our purposes, I think they're better because the absorption is directly into the bloodstream. They don't go to your liver first, which is what happens if you swallow a pill. You don't have to worry about digestive function and absorption because they don't go through your gut. They just get directly into your bloodstream. And it's even more than that, you can vary the dose so easily because if you start at 12 drops twice a day, you can cut it down to 6, right? It's easy to adjust the dosages up or down. All right, so that's a bioidentical hormone. You don't need the conversion of the liver, etc. There's a whole bunch of reasons why these natural hormones or bioidentical hormones are better. And you can get them in all different forms. But again, I think the liquid drops are the easiest for a lot of different reasons. Those are different routes of delivery. Now, here's the big decision, is that do you want to set up the program in a cyclical fashion where it's 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, and then 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, and 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off? Or do you want to do a continuous dosing program where they're taking the progesterone every day of the month? Maybe they take 3 days of the month off, something like that. And some people have set up these programs where they take the progesterone every day of the month without taking a break. And there's people argue both sides of this. You kind of have to come up with your own opinion on it. But the cycling dose option, some practitioners feel is the safest. Why? Because it's mimicking what would normally happen in a woman who's not in menopause. It's one kind of theoretical thing. And there also is a concern that the continuous dosing can impact other hormone levels, especially things like insulin. Okay. However, the flip side of that argument is that, it's not normal for a 72-year-old female to have a menstrual cycle. And so to give a 72-year-old female, hormones in such a way that she has a cycle, it's a little strange. I get it that people do that, but it's a little strange. It's kind of strange for everybody. Strange for you, strange for the patient, I think. And if you use progesterone and you do these other protocols we're talking about, you balance the brain, the gut, the liver, all these other things, the amount of progesterone that you need to use and the length of time you need to use it is really minimal. So I don't think you really have any risk of problems, to be honest. Now, if you're ignoring everything else in the body, if you're letting the train wreck that is their gut continue, and you're letting their environmental toxin exposure, which is full of all kinds of endocrine disruptors, continue. So now they've got gut microbiome problems, inflammation from the gut, environmental toxin issues, maybe some arsenic and lead and mercury in there. Their body's just an inflamed mess of endocrine disruption, okay? If all that's happening and then you dump in a bunch of progesterone, of course, if you don't fix these other things, they're gonna have to take a ton of progesterone forever, and that's kind of risky. But if you're fixing the body overall and the person's getting healthier and healthier, the need for these female hormones diminishes. So it's safe and easy and effective if you do it properly and you have a bigger picture view of things. It's not just the hormones. And that's not a complicated thing to really think through, but there's certainly a lot of people who are trained as if it's just hormones that are necessary for all these corrections. Now, we talk a lot about estrogen dominance also. You can use progesterone to correct estrogen dominance because the very word estrogen dominance is dominant over, the estrogen is dominant over your progesterone. It's the balance of these two hormones that matters. And so if there's estrogen dominance present, while you're dealing with that and resolving it, you can bring up the progesterone levels for a relatively immediate symptomatic relief. And I've personally treated, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands. I don't know if it's 10,000. It's probably not 10,000, but I bet it's more than 5,000 women. Just personally treated more than 5,000 women in my own practice using progesterone. And this stuff works so well. I can kind of almost remember all the people that had bad side effects from it. So I can tell you like all the bad stuff that can happen. So some people are just really sensitive to progesterone. My old office manager was like this. I gave her like literally one drop of progesterone and poof, she just flew off and she couldn't tolerate it. So with her, we ended up using I'm not making this up, one drop of progesterone in a water bottle. She would shake it up and drink it throughout the day, which sounds a lot like a homeopathic, doesn't it? Well, it kind of was like a homeopathic dose. So once in a while, you're going to get somebody who's super sensitive to it. So the way to deal with that is you just tell every woman that you recommend take progesterone the same exact thing, which is this. This should only make you feel better. You say that. This should only make you feel better. If there are any side effects or problems, stop immediately and contact the office. Then before they ask you what side effects, you got to say, we're not expecting anything side effects wise, they're very unusual, but just in case, stop immediately and call the office. And so that 1 in a million person who reacts poorly will know, and everyone else will realize, oh, okay, this is supposed to make me feel better. That's really the thing. Now, if there is a reaction, then you're right back to this whole estrogen dominance problem where you have to fix the liver pathways. I think we talked about that in the last class that I taught with this mini series, right? The first part of this class talked a lot about that. So that has to be done too. You got to fix the gut, correct the adrenals and thyroid, and consider genetic issues. I'm kind of assuming that all that's happening kind of in the background, right? So now, there's our information for the class. I'm going to answer questions and we're going to look at protocols. So let me just see if there's some questions that came in first. Here, let me go back up here. Oh yeah, so thank you, whoever asked this question. Yes, if you take this class, the turnaround time for the hormone zoomer is short. So if you're in this class, you're going to get the free test kit and you're going to get your results back. And we're going to be looking at the results of your tests during the actual boot camp. And if you have other hormone zoomer tests that you're running on patients or already have run, you're going to submit them. So the boot camp is a combination of an online curriculum that I post, you listen to, lectures, and then lab interpretation sessions that we do together in a small group. So everyone gets their labs interpreted, and we're designing programs for you that your classmates are watching happen so you can all learn from the process. That's kind of the goal. Yeah, and we definitely have the class, the way that I scheduled the free calls, even if you're a little spaced out and you don't do your test like the day you get it, we're still gonna have time to review it because you know, I've done this before and there's always like 2 people who don't do the test right away, which is very frustrating, okay? And I don't recommend that you do that. However, if you're one of those people, let me just show you what we've got here. Here, the live calls for this boot camp are, here are the dates. They start in October on the 6th. And then you can see there's a live call. These are all lab interpretation sessions, the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, the 27th. And then you see there's a long pause and a few weeks go by. And then we have one last call on the 17th. That's to review the labs of the people that were so lackadaisical that they didn't send their test in right away. So that's your drop dead deadline. You have almost 2 months. And it only takes like a week or 2 weeks, less than a week to get the results back. So yeah, we're trying to make sure that you get the testing done during the class and then we review your results during the class. Okay, so now let's move on. If you test hormones on an 18-year-old, does their methylation pattern stay the same over a lifetime? Absolutely not, even a little bit. I mean, your genes stay the same. So if you have a genetic defect with your methylation process, that's not going to change. But you could, I'm kind of being sarcastic, but not really. You could think good thoughts. You could, really. You could think good thoughts and change your methylation pattern. You could certainly eat, as I did yesterday, a large bowl of broccoli and completely change your methylation patterns. You could do, as I did about 2 hours ago, take a boatload of phase 2 liver detox support and completely change, oh, and with a B vitamin, I had a B vitamin too. B vitamin and, you know, and completely change your methylation. So your mind can change your methylation, your diet can change it, supplementation can change it, exposures can change it. Like if I moved to a town that was burning coal every day and all the water was full of mercury and I was eating fish from the stream in my backyard that were all full of mercury, and my methylation patterns would change immediately. So, you know, even if it's a genetic issue, you know, you still have you know, variation. Oh, Suzanne signed up for the boot camp. Thank you, Suzanne. We love you. Thank you, Suzanne. So Suzanne, get your free test in the next week or two. Send it in right away, and we'll review it in lab together. I mean, in class together pretty soon. Estrogen creams can work for sure. And I think what's more preferred usually is estrogen patch. That's more often used, but estrogen creams can also work. You can also use estrogen in a troche. It's like a lozenge that you suck on. So for Jessica, who is in Paris, very glad you're in Paris. It is the best city in the whole world, in my mind, perhaps second to Barcelona. But enjoy your dinner there, Jessica. And yes, you will get a recording from this, of this. Let's see, interesting things that people type in here. Don't have anything. I'm not going to, if I don't even have any clue about the answer to the question, I'm not going to try to answer it, okay? So if I don't answer your question, it means I have no idea how to answer it. Or I just, my eyes are not so good, I missed it. Oh yeah, so here's one. You can use non-hormone related products for boosting progesterone, absolutely. But I don't know, progesterone works so well in a liquid form. It's so effective, it's so safe, it's so immediate in its effect that I just use real progesterone instead of the herbal analogs. I'm not against the herbal analogs, but progesterone, it just seems like, what the heck, just do it, you know? Will progesterone impact cortisol? Yes, absolutely. You can change all the downstream hormones with progesterone. Now, if you're giving the right amount of progesterone in the right dose, you will never have a problem with cortisol. I guarantee you that. But if you gave too much progesterone for too long, it'll screw up your cortisol and your insulin and your estrogen. Haha. That's why we do the test, for sure, for sure. Let's see. Let's see here. I'm just going through the questions. Oh, now here's a good one from Anna. If you're on progesterone already, but no tests have been done, just prescribed because of symptoms, can you do the test anyway? That's a very important question. It's going to come up in your practice because you guys are all going to have patients that come in and they're on progesterone, either self-prescribed or prescribed by someone else, but they were never tested. I think that's a bad thing to do. I think if you're going to take the time and energy to give somebody a hormone, that the least you can do is test the levels. How did I learn this? I learned this from my old patient, Carolyn. Let's call her Carolyn Jones. It's not her real name. It was my first year of practice, my very first year of practice. I had hair. I wasn't bald yet. I was like 30 years old, full of vim and vigor. I don't know what vim is, but I had a lot of vim. Anyways, and I suggested, because Dr. Lee told me, I called Dr. Lee, I was like, what should I do for Carolyn? He's like, give her progesterone cream. So I suggested to Carolyn, you should take this progesterone cream. And she's like, why? And I'm sure she was thinking, she was probably like 55 or 60. She was thinking, this kid looks like he's 10 years old. Why am I going to take progesterone? But I didn't know that at the time because I was 30. And at 30, you don't realize how young you look, right? And so she's like, I'm not going to take that stuff. I was like, why not? She's like, how do I know it's safe? I was like, well, because your progesterone levels are low. She's like, how do you know? I was like, I don't know. And then she kind of trapped me into ordering a test. So I was like, we're going to test your levels of progesterone. And so she's like, great, test my levels. So I got a lab kit and we tested her progesterone levels. Okay. And when that lab came back, I got on the phone with the lab director at Diagnostics Lab. And it was like, I still remember this so clear. It was like 7 at night. It was at the end of the day, long day in the clinic. It's, tired, calling Dr. Timmons on the phone because that was when we had our consult set up. And we spoke until like almost midnight. Can you believe that? Like for like 4 or 5 hours. I was like, I don't know, Dr. Timmons, I've got this progesterone lab. I'm not sure what to do. And he just explained everything to me. And that was the beginning of my second mentorship. Dr. Timmons and I became his student basically for the next 6, 7, 8 years. I ended up eventually moving into the basement of his home. He taught me so much, so much. Okay. But what Carolyn taught me was that you got to do the testing. You cannot prescribe a hormone without a lab test, and you cannot keep someone on a hormone unless you do a follow-up lab. You just can't tell with looking at people what their hormone levels are like. Okay, you just can't tell. So you got to do the test. So that was Anna. Now for Anna's specific question, she's already on the progesterone. So then you have two options. You could stop the progesterone to try to let it wash out and then see what your levels are like. Or you can just stay on the progesterone, do the test and see what's happening. I mean, that's probably the obvious thing to do. Just see what's happening with the amount that you're taking now. And don't freak out or panic if it's really high. There are very specific ways to lower progesterone if you need to. You can clear it out of the system pretty quickly within a couple months. Let's see. So the typical starting dose of progesterone is going to be 12 drops of these liquids twice a day. Okay, 12 drops twice a day. And I'll show you some products in a minute. We'll look at products. In your course, you have a section. Yeah, we talk a lot about preventing breast cancer. And for sure, I don't have lectures on, how to handle people who have already had breast cancer, but that's something that would come up in the live calls. So that's for Stephanie. If you have patients that have survived breast cancer and you're testing them, we definitely can talk about that in the live calls. So they don't have any specific lectures on it. That's the whole point of the live call, is to review things. I'm going to go through my favorite products in a second. So if you're going to retest somebody who's on progesterone, you have two choices. You can either have her stop for 3 to 7 days, or you can have them just continue on it and test as they're doing it and see what the effect is there. Okay, so a few more questions, and we'll look at protocols. So Suzanne is asking, there's a push to give women HRT in perimenopause before they're demonstrating symptoms, saying that it's more effective to start early than when symptoms occur. Well, Suzanne, remember Sharon? If you've got a patient who has healthy adrenal hormones, has a healthy microbiome, and very importantly, healthy liver detox pathways, who has no GI pathogens and no substantial amounts of chemicals or heavy metals in her body, and her emotional life is reasonable, but maybe not perfect, you know? I mean, if she's married to an alcoholic or her 2 children are heroin addicts, I mean, it's gonna be problematic. But assuming that the stress is managed and not out of control, her gut's in great shape, and her liver detox capacity is wunderbar, wonderful. I made up a word, wunderbar. I don't know how you say that in German. Really great, okay? Then there should be no perimenopausal or menopausal symptoms at all. So perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms are signs of an imbalanced microbiome, liver detoxification issues, hormone stress from the adrenals, hormone stress from the mitochondria, hormone stress from the thyroid, all those kinds of things packaged together. So it doesn't make sense to just anticipate that this woman's going to have perimenopausal symptoms because she's unhealthy and then to give them hormones ahead of time. No, you should get them healthy like I did with Sharon, and then they won't have these symptoms. In fact, back in the day when I was studying with Dr. Lee, I remember reading his book. There are whole languages and whole cultures on this planet that don't even have a word for hot flashes and night sweats because they never happen, okay? If you're eating a lot of vegetables, they don't happen. Oh my gosh, let's see. I'm trying to get through all these questions and then we got to do protocols. Okay, but it's a lot of questions today. All right, let me skip over and do protocols for a minute, and then, because I know some of you are going to have to leave, and then maybe we continue on with questions after that, okay? So let me just show you here. This is not a complicated thing to do. And again, for the net benefit that patients will receive, this is relatively straightforward. I mean, in other words, you learning it, it doesn't take that much work for the amount of benefit that's going to happen to the people that you do this with. And so I'll just show you, there's maybe 3 or 4 different products that you can use that are non-prescription, bioidentical hormone for real, progesterone for real. I'm more power to you if you want to do the plant-based stuff. I'm not against that. I just think the real progesterone works really well, so why not just use it? If you want to do herbs, go for it. You just figure that out on your own somehow. So here are the different products. So there's one called Progon B L4X from Bezwecken. This is the one I've been using the longest because it's been around for like 40 years. The liquid progesterone, it says on the label to put it on your skin, but it's better absorbed if you just put it in your mouth. It's straight up progesterone, 12 drops twice a day, typical dose. If she's cycling, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. If she's not cycling, 12 drops twice a day. And then you either do that every day, or if you're worried about insulin resistance and those kinds of things, give her 3 to 7 days a month off. 3 to 7 days a month off if she's in perimenopause or menopause and you're worried about insulin resistance. If she's cycling still and you want to continue the cycle, it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. The other product is very similar. It's called Pro Adapt. This one's been around, I don't know, probably for pretty close to 30 years also. And it's from Biomatrix is the name of the company, okay? And it also is progesterone in a liquid. And it's dosed about the same, 12 drops twice a day. Now this one is typically rubbed on the skin. It's in an oil base. Although you can put it in the mouth, it is absorbed orally as well. So rubbed on the skin, or you can take it in your mouth. Dosing is about the same. Standard starting dose is 12 drops twice a day. And then there's one more I'll mention, just so you know about it. Let's see here. And sometimes one of these products is on back order, or patient doesn't like the taste of something or something like that. So Quicksilver has Pro Progesterone. And this it's in a pump, right? So 2 pumps. Let's see here, it should tell us. is 12 milligrams. So you typically might do 2 pumps twice a day. Now this you apply to the skin, like the Biomatrix product. This one you have to be, the skin products you have to be a little careful of. This one I don't think you're going to get much in the way of transfer because it's absorbed so well. But I prefer the drops or liquids, but these other products are fine too. And then you're going to test and retest people so you figure out when people need to stop. Okay, so we're going to get, oh, I should write the protocols out just so you can see them. That helps people, I know. And I brought up a whole sheet. Oh, here it is. Yeah, okay. So you have the product options. There's Progon B L4X, Progon B L4X. That's from Bezwecken. And Bezwecken is a company started by a naturopath named Dr. Sheffrin. He's an amazing person. There's ProAdapt. That's from Biomatrix. That's Dr. Timmons' old company, my old teacher. And then there's the Progesterone. And that's from Quicksilver. Quicksilver is a pretty amazing company. Everything they make is like amazing. So the typical dosing then, if she's cycling and you want the cycling to continue, would be liquids. Let's just do it for Progon B. Let's see, Progon B, and then this is also true for ProAdapt. It would be 12 drops twice a day. Okay. And generally, some people prefer to give all the progesterone at night before sleep because it helps with sleep a lot. Dr. Timmons always taught me to do it spread throughout the day to keep levels stable throughout the day, keep your blood levels stable. You could give all 20 drops at night before sleep if they have a big sleep problem, totally acceptable. But I was taught to do it this way, so I did this way. 12 drops twice a day, keep levels stable. That's a starting dose, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off if she's still menstruating. And then every day of the month if she's not menstruating anymore. But if you're doing the I'm not menstruating anymore people, then you may want to give either 3 or 7 days a month off to just let the hormones clear out. Okay. So that's the basic protocol, and that's it. I mean, it's pretty darn easy, right? I mean, how hard was that? But you're only going to do this if you test people when they're low. So yes, absolutely. You have to match the level of the hormone with the time of the month that they did the test. Yes, that is accurate. That is Deborah's question. Depending on the day we test, progesterone will fluctuate. Do we expect progesterone to be low in each phase of the cycle before we? Yeah, so Rhonda, that's the $1 million question. So if the woman is still cycling, it's a problem because you don't know if you only do a single sample test and she's not having a period on a regular basis now, you don't really know what time of the month that you're in. So that's why we used to do the month-long panels. But nobody really does the month-long panels anymore. That's become incredibly unpopular. So I used to teach those all the time, but no one ever did them, so I gave up. So the way that it's done now is you try to figure out what time of the cycle she's in and then do the test with some sense of its, ideally the test is done somewhere between days 18 and 23 of the cycle, if you can figure that out, right? Oh, and Dr. Lee's book was, the first book was Your Guide. Let me show you, Dr. Lee. Well, the first book he wrote was just called Progesterone, but that wasn't exactly a bestseller. And so it was rewritten. And you can see, I think this website was frozen the day he died. This is like, that's a really old picture of him. And this is a really old website. But here are his books. The best one really is What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Menopause. What your doctor may not tell you about menopause. And it's not about menopause, okay? It's about female hormones for women of all ages. So what your doctor may not tell you about menopause. That's a classic. And it's still a great book. I've read this book. I practically had it memorized. That's Dr. John Lee, okay? And it's still as relevant as it was when he wrote it 30 years ago. Let's see. Let me go. A couple more questions. Oh, we're out of time, but we'll do 1 or 2 more questions. I'm gonna go faster. So the days that you take off progesterone for Christiana, yes, those are all in a row. So if you're doing the month-long program, you do have every day of the month except for take 3 days off or take 7 days off, all in a row. Let's see, we do 1 or 2 more questions and I gotta go. Keep on time. Oh, when do you start? I didn't tell you that. Oh, I'm sorry, Naomi. Sorry, it's my fault. I said 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, thinking you would all know what I meant by that, but no, I didn't explain. So if you're going to do the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off thing, starting on day 15. So the first day of bleeding is the first day of the cycle. Ask the patient, okay, day 1 is your first day of bleeding. When is your next day 15? And then it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, starting on day 15. Starting on day 15, and day 1 is the first day of the menstrual cycle. I hope to see many of you in our upcoming and amazing boot camp on hormones. If you want to learn how to interpret these labs properly, sign up for the class. We got every incentive we can possibly give you. A free test kit from Vibrant. Thank you, Vibrant. And me, my side kicking in a $360 discount to make this affordable. So use these codes, scan a QR code, remember the Vibrant 25 thing. You'll get all of this in an email if you're driving right now. You can't like write this stuff down. Don't crash your car. Just wait for the email to come. We'll give you all this information so you can sign up. But this thing is starting soon, October 6th. So don't like pontificate and think about it and talk to all your best friends about whether you should do it or not. Either like sign up or not, because this is coming up in a few days, and we tried to make it very approachable financially for you all. So it's kind of an easy decision, all right? We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks for all your questions.